Coming up on AEA Amplified, Mark Lee and Gil Vigil of Forge Flightworks share their story on how they have grown their avionics business by offering customers a brand new service, one stitch at a time.
From the Aircraft Electronics Association, this is AEA Amplified, a podcast for aviation's technology experts, with your host, Jeff Hill.
Hello, friends, and welcome back to another episode of AEA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a Moog company, and a leading provider of autopilots for rotor and fixed-wing aircraft. The Genesis S-Tech 5000 is the latest digital autopilot, providing increased safety plus decreased pilot workload, and is being certified for Part 23 and Part 25 retrofit aircraft, such as high-performance turboprop and turbine jet aircraft. To learn more about the S-Tech 5000, visit genesis-aerosystems.com. Hi again, everyone. I'm your host, Jeff Hill, for this September 14th, 2022 edition of AEA Amplified, and we have a fun and enlightening story to share with the avionics community today, as I am joined by Mr. Mark Lee and Gil Vigil of Forge Flightworks, a longtime AEA member repair station located near Nashville in Smyrna, Tennessee. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for being with us. And let me begin with Mark. Mark, you've had an incredible career in the industry, and that certainly goes back several years prior to you purchasing your own shop. So if you could tell us a little bit about your aviation background and walk us through your career to this point.
Well, hi, Jeff. Thank you so much for the very kind invitation to talk with you today. It's really an honor and a privilege to be with you. As to your question, I have always loved aviation, for much of my life, but it was kind of from afar. After grad school, I worked in telecom for 10 years and then at Nortel, and then in software for 12 years at Microsoft. And I've always had an opportunity to work on kind of the latest, greatest technology, which has been a lot of fun. Well, when my wife and I lived in the Seattle area, I decided to get my private pilot's license, and within a year or so, we bought an aircraft, the 1974 Cessna Cardinal RG. So aviation for me was a hobby up until 2007, and that's when I decided to leave Microsoft, see if I could maybe spend the rest of my career in aviation. So I was fortunate to have the opportunity to work at Diamond Aircraft up in London, Ontario. Had a great experience there with that team and those customers and that set of distribution channel partners. I was vice president of business development at Aspen Avionics, and then I had the opportunity to lead marketing for the Honda Jet for a while. So I've had an opportunity to see the GA space from the point of view of new aircraft as well as retrofit aircraft sales from a manufacturer level. When I left Honda, I decided I wanted to see if I could find an aviation service business to buy and run. And part of the thing there is I wanted to be closer to end user customers rather than work from a manufacturer's level. And I looked at more than 60 different businesses over a 2-year period. And then in 2014, that's when we found Carpenter Avionics. And after a few months of due diligence, decided to acquire this business. And, we felt that the company had a solid reputation, which would be a good foundation for us to grow the business. And that's kind of how we got to where we are right now anyway, sir.
It's quite a distinguished career there, and you mentioned there you did purchase Carpenter Avionics back in 2014. I'm just curious, how did that opportunity present itself?
Well, by that point, I had been actively looking for a business for about a year and a half. So I had subscribed to various services that reference, businesses that are available for sale, and also through personal networks, et cetera. A lot of different, feelers out there, if you will. But it was through one of these particular subscription services that I learned that Carpenter Avionics, kind of popped up on my radar screen. And I was attracted to the company after learning a little bit more about it due to its award-winning heritage, and the fact that the company had this ability to repair avionics, especially autopilot repair. And the more I learned about it, the more I felt that, I could really build something here on this foundation. And although I'm not an avionics tech, I'm not a software developer, I thought that the value add I might be able to bring to this was applying marketing energy to help elevate the brand and applying new technology to help scale the business. So that's what we've embarked on.
Yeah, and speaking of the brand, Carpenter Avionics had been around for a while, but about a year ago, late in 2021, you decided to rebrand and you changed the company name from Carpenter Avionics to Forge Flightworks. So, what were the reasons behind the rebrand?
Well, it's a good question, and that's never a decision that you take lightly, especially if things are working. And what I would say is from the time, that we acquired Carpenter Avionics, I expected that we would need to change or evolve the name in some fashion at some point. The first reason, the word avionics, that might limit what people felt we could do for them. And I did not want the name of the company to be a constraint to our growth. And I had expected from day one that we would be moving into additional service areas. I didn't know exactly on day one what those service areas would be, but I always felt that the first part of that two-name combination that would be changed would be the word avionics. And while many companies choose a category name like aviation or aerospace, which are perfectly fine category names, I really wanted to try to do something a bit different there. We like to zig when other people zag, if you will. So the word Flightworks, it appealed to me because I think it appeals to the imagination in a little bit of a different way. And it maps to our brand personality, which is a bit vintage industrial. So that was one part of the name. But as for the other part of the company named Carpenter, that name carries with it many positives. And some of the folks who are listening to this podcast may know that Mr. Bob Carpenter, he was an AEA board member for many years. He was a recipient of the AEA Person of the Year Award. And he's a member of the Tennessee Aviation Hall of Fame. So, you don't take a name change lightly when you have a person of that stature and that capability, as the name for the company. But what I would say is, Mr. Carpenter set out a mission for his company to be a superior avionics service center. And those were his words from some of the things I have read. And he accomplished that mission. I mean, the shop was voted one of the top 10 avionics service centers in the country for 20 years. This was an annual poll over a 21-year period by ProPilot magazine readers. And so I would say Mr. Carpenter and his team accomplished that mission. And we ultimately decided to change that part of our company name because the company was changing and expanding its mission in a fairly fundamental way. And we wanted to signal that change while also being familiar in terms of the look of the logo. So, and we looked at, well, should the name be a person name? Should it be a place name or a conceptual name? And because there are many fingerprints, if you will, on this strategy and on the direction of our company where we're going now, and there will be many other people who have their imprint on the company going forward, we decided to have the name be a conceptual name. And we established some very definitive criteria for the name and, looked at, more than hundreds of options, as you can imagine. And we landed on Forge because we just felt that it checked every box. So after the company celebrated its 40-year anniversary last year, we announced this name change. And that's a little bit of the behind the scenes there on that.
Yeah, that's an amazing story and certainly something that's been well thought out and strategic in nature. And the story continues. I know you had customers that were asking you if you could provide other services that were beyond avionics, maybe such as either interior work, annual inspections, maybe engine and airframe maintenance, et cetera. And then for the most part, you had to decline those requests. But how did you determine that out of all of those possibilities that aircraft interior upgrades was the best strategy to grow your business?
Well, I think that's a really good question. A lot of it for us, it came down to being pragmatic on some level. In a typical avionics upgrade, as you know, many of the interior components get removed at the beginning of the project and then reinstalled at the end. And so that just seemed to me and to us like kind of a logical time for a customer who might be considering an upgrade to the interior to go ahead and make that happen because it can be more efficient and more cost effective for the customer to get that done. In addition, our company, with our Part 145 certificate, we already had coverage for limited airframe. So that made the regulatory pathway for us to do interiors a fairly logical choice. The other factor for us was looking, if you will, in the marketplace in our area, in our region. While there were and while there still are, some other companies, in our area doing aircraft interior work, we felt that there was a distinct opportunity to do something better, something different, we felt. And at the end of the day, we felt there was an unmet need that we might be able to address. And that's what led us to pursue aircraft interiors initially.
And Mark, that decision to expand in the aircraft interiors then, of course, led you to Gil Vigil and his company, which is called Speed and Design. And it's a company that does world-class interior work for the automotive industry, for classic hot rods, custom cars, etc. How did you meet Gil and connect with him?
Well, once we decided aircraft interiors makes a lot of sense for us, the classic question is, well, do you do this organically on your own from scratch, or do you partner or collaborate with someone? And, while we did consider the notion of buying the relevant tooling and hiring folks to start that from scratch, instead, I wanted to see if there was, really somebody in our region maybe who had an award-winning pedigree, specifically in automotive, because I just thought some of the most innovative stuff is happening, in that space with regard to interior in terms of creativity and craftsmanship. And I thought, well, maybe we'll find somebody like that, in perhaps one of the adjacent states to Tennessee. And it just turns out that after watching a SEMA award show a couple of years ago, I learned that one of the award-winning cars there had its interior done by a Tennessee shop. And it's like, okay. So I started making some inquiries right away. That led me to Mr. Gil Vigil and his company, Speed and Design. And to learn that these folks were right here in the Nashville area, I was just blown away by that happy coincidence. And then I reached out to Gil, spoke with him a few times to see if he might be interested in putting together a business development relationship on this. I was very thankful to learn that he had already started doing some work in aviation on his own, and he was already very interested in this space. So very happy with that serendipity, and we are very, very thankful and appreciative of this working relationship with Gil and his team, who are now moving over and becoming part of our team, and we couldn't be more excited about that.
Yeah, and that's a perfect segue and opportunity to bring in Gil at this point and get his perspective. Gil, thanks for joining us, and if you could, tell us a little bit about yourself and your professional background in the automotive industry.
Thank you. I really appreciate you guys having us as well. Well, my background didn't start off in the automotive industry. I started off in law enforcement. I started off with DOJ, Department of Homeland Security. I was a police officer for a while, and also did some liaison work with, FBI, with a lot of different entities of the Joint Terrorism Task Force. So it was really wasn't what I was looking to do, but I did have a background when I was in law enforcement. I was a tactical flight officer for quite a while. So I was tasked with basically fixing any parts of whatever went down, in the hangar. We were doing that. And so I got a chance to work on a few different planes while I was there, while I was a tactical flight officer. So that's basically my background. When I left law enforcement after 22 years and with all these different entities, I decided, hey, I'm going to move to Nashville. Decided to move to Nashville and help a buddy out in the industry, in the car industry. It was a chrome plating place, and while I was doing the law enforcement stuff, I was actually working on friends' cars, and when I had time off, we would complete their interiors. We would do plane interiors for a few buddies of mine, and I really enjoyed it. And I said, hey, when I retire, I'm retiring a little bit early, maybe I should go ahead and just pursue that. And I did. When I moved to Nashville, I started the company Speed and Design, which I had a company previous to that, which I was doing, the part-time interior stuff. Well, the first car we did got featured in a magazine, which was amazing to me. So after that, it kind of went, it snowballed from there. Then we, had a grade 8. Then we had SEMA cars. Then we had some real heavy duty picks in the industry. And so that helped out a lot, basically. And now it led us to where we are at this point for me to pursue the aviation interior business. It seems like we've gone to the top in the automotive industry, and actually we're looking to do that with the aviation interiors as well.
So in applying those skills from the automotive industry over into the aircraft, I'm curious, can you maybe tell us a little bit about the, first couple of those projects that you did with Forge Flightworks? What did those projects look like?
Sure. I think the first one we did was a Cardinal RG. And the first one we did, it really was, it didn't start off with a lot of detail. It was just a basic, hey, I just want carpet, I just want door panels, I just want this stuff. Well, when the customer found out that we could actually take it to the next level, he decided, hey, I do want a few extra things in this, in my comfort zones here, where I can, where I can have a pocket here, where I could reach for something. And so we, in the door panels, we built custom pockets that look like purses, and his wife really enjoyed that. In the speaker grills, we we lasered out custom speaker grills. We did a lot of upgrading into that Cardinal that you just really don't see. There was a few things that we did that I mean, it's pretty basic. We did a lot of embroidery, a lot of different things like that. So it wasn't one where we could go all out, but we have a few coming up that we're going to be able to do that with.
And once again, we are visiting with Mark Lee and Gil Vigil of Forge Flightworks here on AEA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a Moog company. And Gil, I'm curious, maybe when an aircraft owner or a customer comes into the shop and maybe they want a new aircraft interior, walk us through the process with the client. What does that look like from start to finish?
Sure. That's a great question. First off, we like to get to know the customer. So I think it's a few meetings with them, just talking to them before we even get to the interior, because a lot of times they're coming in for avionics. So we get to find out what their likes are. We tell them to go back and look at photos of things that they're interested in, maybe a vehicle that they have that they've liked the interior in. A lot of customers say, oh, I saw this BMW interior, I've seen this, Volvo interior, I've seen something that really caught their eye. So really kind of get a feel of what the customer wants. From there, we can actually sit down in their cabin and utilize the space to try and figure out what their necessities are. Once we figure that out, it's pretty simple from there. It's basically figuring out what materials they want to use, if they want to use leathers, if they want to use different floorings. Right now, there is so many different floorings that you could use other than just carpet. A lot of times the carpet, it gets really dirty and it's hard to maintain. So right now we have a lot of synthetic floorings, a lot of floorings that look like wood, a lot of floorings that look like marble that we can actually put into the cabin and make it look like something different, something that you've never really seen before. Once we do that, then it's just small things like basically when somebody sits in a seat, does somebody want more bolster on the sides? Does somebody want more? Does somebody want a better headrest? Do they want more lumbar support? Just depending on what they want, how far they want to go with it, we can actually shape the foam to fit them, to fit their, the co-pilot, and to basically do whatever you need to get done to make that more comfortable. So a lot of clients will come in and say, hey, we want our yokes wrapped, so we'll custom wrap those. So once we finish that, then we kind of sit down with them, figure out pricing, figure out how far they want to go. Some people really want to upgrade and go all out. Some people just want to step back and go, hey, I just need my seats done, or I just need carpet done. So It's a fun process. It's getting to know the customers a little bit better, and it's a really enjoyable process actually.
Yeah, it's amazing, and it's also incredible to hear you describe all of the detail that goes into these projects from start to finish. Mark, let me turn back to you for a minute, and um, what advice, you found your niche, I guess, here, growing your company with these interior upgrades, but what advice would you maybe give to other AEA member repair stations around the country and around the world that may be at a crossroads on whether or not to expand their services? What would you say to them?
Well, that's a fairly profound question. Well, I guess a couple of things I might say is, do you feel that your company can achieve its full potential doing only avionics services? Or do you feel that there is a need to kind of expand beyond that? I would say, what are your customers saying? What kinds of services are they asking you to perform? And if so, what are those services? I would say look around you within your regional marketplace to see, are there current service providers right now, doing a fantastic job in that space. It's kind of the classic marketing question: how well served is your market already, and would that market accommodate a new entrant? And if so, like, how would your offering be different? How would it be better? I think you've got to look at what kind of investment you're going to need to enter that new space. And it isn't just tooling and people, but regulatory approvals, that those things apply to our space, vendor relationships, and it's likely going to cause you to have to look at creating new process or refining processes that you have right now. And so I don't know if you are a leader of an avionics service company right now contemplating making such a change. I think these are some of the pieces of information you probably want to got, and then some of the decisions you'd want to make before you decide, yeah, I think I need to enter space X, Y, or Z over here to complement what we're already doing over here in the avionics area. That would be my 2 cents worth anyway.
Definitely great advice. And Mark, I certainly can't let you go without asking what seems to be the question of the year, and that would be, has the supply chain challenges that everyone is facing for parts, has that impacted your business? And if it has, how are you dealing with it and working with your customers?
Indeed, yes, we have been bitten by that bug as well. I would say that not all of our vendor partners have had supply chain issues, but for sure some of them have. And some of these issues that began months ago still persist. We do see some improvement in a few areas, but even now there are some products, for projects we have on our install calendar where the product availability is still 4 to 6 months away. So how are we working with this? Well, first of all, we try to get these projects scheduled as soon as possible so that then we can gather very specific information from each of the vendor partners as quickly as possible about the timing of the availability for their products. And that has been, as you know, kind of a moving target as the past months have gone along. But all of this does inform on our scheduling, because we don't really want to get an aircraft here until we make sure that all the parts are in hand. In some cases, we've had to look for alternative parts that could be available sooner. If that maps to what the customer is trying to achieve with their upgrade. And if so, that's great. But in other cases, we just have to adapt our calendar and planning to whatever the availability of the product may be from the vendor X, Y, or Z. So the thing is, I tend to be an optimist. I do not expect these supply chain issues that we have right now. I don't view these as a new normal that's going to be our state of affairs just for the ongoing future. I do see this subsiding over the next few months, and I know the vendors are working in earnest to get those things resolved. So.
Well, Mark Lee and Gil Vigil, congratulations to you and your entire successful team there for expanding the business there at Forge Flightworks. Is there anything else that you'd like to cover before we let you go? Gil, let's maybe start with you, and then Mark can close it out.
Sure, absolutely. I think the thing that we want to change is I think we want to make your interior experience something of a basically so let's say when you come in, everybody's used to having just an interior that's basic, that from the 80s, from the 70s, from the 90s. These airplanes have never been upgraded, and I think when a customer comes in, their expectations are pretty broad when you first talk to them, and we kind of have to reel them in a little bit and let them know, hey, it doesn't have to stay this way on your interior. We can actually upgrade it and make it more comfortable and livable for you, especially these guys who are flying a lot. The comfort factor is a big thing. So that's really what I want to push, being able to build the seats like the customer wants, make them more comfortable, put bolster where they want. So what I want to do is I want to bring maybe some of that hot rod kind of look into an aviation interior, so that when somebody looks at that interior, they go, wow, that's amazing. It just doesn't look like the plain aviation interior that I've seen before. Everybody's got it. You've all sat in a plane and it's just basic. There's nothing really that pops out at you. We want to be able for somebody to sit in that plane and go, wow, this is like my car I just bought. So that's really what we're pushing, and that's really what we want to do, bring up the expectations that the customer, that a customer really needs. I think when they go buy a new car, it doesn't have an 80s interior in it. It has a new state-of-the-art interior. So that's basically what we want to do, bring it up to that state-of-the-art standards.
Terrific. Well, I'll add my 2 cents worth here as well. And I agree with everything that Gil just said. And again, we are so happy to be working with Gil and his team here at Forge. Jeff, I just want to say thank you so much for allowing us to participate in your podcast today. What I would say in terms of any closing comments is, if any of the listeners want to learn more about our company, Forge Flightworks, you can look at our website, which is forgeflightworks.com, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. I would also say, kind of watch this space, because we're entering the aircraft interior space now, and we're very, very excited about that. We have other ambitions as we look ahead, and so I would just say, watch this space. And you'd asked earlier about perhaps leaders of an avionics service company who might be contemplating, making change or expanding into other areas. I guess I would also say if there are avionics techs and leaders in the avionics space who might be at a crossroads within their career, and they might be thinking about making a change, this is my shameless plug for talent, which seems to be an ongoing thing. So you might want to give us some consideration there. But we are proud to be an AEA member, and very happy, and we very much appreciate having the opportunity to speak with you today, Jeff.
Well, Mark and Gil, thanks so much for joining us here on AEA Amplified. And for all of our listeners, you can learn more about Forge Flightworks by checking out the September issue of Avionics News magazine. And that includes an in-depth look at the company's newfound success. If you don't have a hard copy, of course, you can read it online at avionicsnews.net, or you can download the apps available for iOS and Android devices. And of course, as Mark mentioned there, you can also visit the company on their website at forgeflightworks.com. And let remind our listeners of a few important items, and that is the AEA's classroom is loaded up once again with a full schedule as we head into the fall months here in North America. You can join us for one of the upcoming avionics training courses at the AEA's headquarters in Lee Summit, Missouri. That's near Kansas City. And there are several different classes available. You can learn more about each of them and reserve your seat. And definitely reserve your seat, because classes will sell out. You can get all that information and register at aea.net/training. Also, please join us for one of the upcoming AEA Connect conferences. These are 2-day events, and they allow technicians and business owners the opportunity to learn industry best practices and connect with regional sales and product support representatives. It also allows avionics technicians and shops to satisfy their training requirements. Up next in the weeks ahead, you can connect in Munich, Germany, Reno, Nevada, Tampa, Florida, and the Sunshine Coast, Australia. You can check out all the dates and the details of those Connect conferences at aea.net/connect. And finally, if your business is hiring, don't forget to post your career opportunities on the AEA jobs board, and you can do so at aea.net/jobs. Free resume posting is also available for job seekers out there. So there's lots of new employment opportunities, and they were listed here within just the last week. You can learn all about it at aea.net/jobs. And that's going to wrap it up for today. We hope you can join us again soon for another episode of AEA Amplified, sponsored by Genesis Aerosystems, a Moog company. To learn more about Genesis and its full range of products, visit genesis-aerosystems.com. Thanks again to Mark Lee and Gil Vigil of Forge Flightworks for being our guests today. And until next time here on AEA Amplified, for our producer engineer Aaron Ward, this is your host, Jeff Hill, wishing you blue skies ahead wherever you may be.